Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's college basketball, NBA, and NHL games, look ahead to today's games in each sport, NBA power rankings, Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. We'll talk about nobody getting in, as well as some MLB free agent signings, NFL coaching carousel, preview Mass Answer for tonight, and best bet of the day. So a big show today. We'll start with college basketball. We'll go over the games from yesterday and look ahead to what is a busier slate than yesterday for today. So without further ado, here we go from last night's games. Temple over Tulsa 76-67. Indiana State over Southern Illinois 71-59. Richmond over St. Joe 79-56. Ohio over Western Michigan 81-58. Number 24 Oklahoma over number 5 Texas 80-79. Number 9, Alabama over Kentucky, 70-59. Number 18, Tennessee over Mississippi State, 56-53. Memphis over SMU, 76-72. UNC over Pitt, 75-65. Fairleigh Dickinson over St. Francis, Pennsylvania, 94-92 in overtime. Toledo over Miami of Ohio, 90-81. Akron over Eastern Michigan, 86-65. Drake over Missouri State, 68-61. SIU Edwards over Eastern Illinois, 87-74. Dayton upsets number 22 St. Louis, 76-71. UConn over Butler, 63-51. Auburn over number 12 Missouri, 88-82. That was not an upset because Auburn was favored. Portland State over St. Martin's, 69-60. Tennessee Martin over Southeast Missouri State, 69-66. Duke over Georgia Tech, 75-68. And LSU over Texas A&M, 78-66. Now today's games, 3 o'clock, you have BYU and Pepperdine. My line is BYU by 9. Total 146. Meanwhile, it is BYU by 6.5. Total 146.5. I'm going to take BYU minus 6.5 at minus 105. 4 o'clock. Merrimack, Long Island again. It was supposed to be yesterday and they moved it today. LIU by 5. Total 141 is my projection. It's LIU 5.5. Total 138.5. I have no choice but to take the over there. Towson, James Madison. My line's Towson, 6.5, total 145. Meanwhile, it's James Madison, 3.5, total 146.5. I have to take Towson plus 3.5 and plus 105. Plus 3.5 at minus 105 and plus 154 on the money line. Fairleigh Dickinson and St. Francis, Pennsylvania. There's no line out yet, but my projection is Dickinson 4, total 145. Those two teams will play again today. 5 o'clock, Bowling Green, Kent State. My line is Bowling Green 7, total 154. Meanwhile, it's Kent 4.5, total 152.5. I'm taking Bowling Green plus 4.5 at minus 104 and plus 184 on the money line. Rhode Island and LaSalle. My projection is Rhode Island by 5, total 140. Meanwhile, it's Rhode Island 7.5, total 139.5. I have no choice but to take LaSalle plus 7.5 at minus 118. Wofford in the Citadel. My line is Wofford 14.5, total 158.5. Meanwhile, it's Wofford 8.5, total 161.5. I'm going to lay the 8.5 of Wofford at minus 114. 6 o'clock ACC Network. Miami at number 16, Florida State. My line is Florida State 9.5, total 141.5. And my line is Florida State 11.5, total 140.5. I have to take Miami plus 11.5 at minus 118. Duquesne, Fordham, my line is Duquesne 8.5, total 122. Meanwhile, it is Duquesne 6.5, total 119.5. I am going to go with over 119.5 because it's just got to. Under feels too obvious, right? So I'm going to go over 119.5 between Duquesne and Fordham. 6:30 SEC Network, Vandy in Florida. My line is Florida 18, total 147. Meanwhile, it is Florida 12.5, total 146.5. So I'm going to lay the points with Florida at minus 118. 7 o'clock, Big Ten Network, Penn State at number 13, Ohio State. My line is Buckeyes 13. total 148.5. Meanwhile, it's Buckeyes 7.5 total 146.5. I'm going to lay the 7.5 with Ohio State. Fox Sports 1, number 17, Creighton at Seton Hall. My line is Creighton 5.5 total 148. And the line is Creighton 1.5. I'm going to lay it with Creighton. I don't see a total yet, so I'm going to lay the 1.5 with Creighton. Number 20, Virginia Tech at Notre Dame. My line is Virginia Tech 5.5 total 142. Meanwhile, it's Virginia Tech minus 1.5 total 139.5. I'm going to lay the 1.5 of Virginia Tech at even money. Mercer, UNC, Greensboro. My line is Greensboro 5.5 total 148.5. Meanwhile, I don't see a line out yet for this game. CBS Sports Network, Marquette, Providence. My line is Marquette 4 total 143. Meanwhile, it is Providence 1.5 total 138.5. I am going to go. This is a tough call here. When it's telling you that the team you shouldn't think is favored, they're normally right. So I'm going to go over 138.5 for my pick here. East Carolina, UCF. My line for this is UCF by 1, total 132. Meanwhile, and by the way, that game, oh no, it's in the 7 o'clock window. I don't know why it says 8 o'clock on FanDuel, but meanwhile, it's UCF 6.5, total 130.5. I am going to go with East Carolina plus a 6.5 at minus 118 to cover. ESPN 2, Georgia, South Carolina. I apologize because I couldn't get to the totals for the rest of these games. I just have the lines. South Carolina 4.5. Meanwhile, it is 4.5. Totals 158.5. I'm going to go under 158.5 at minus 106. I just think that's too high. Western Carolina and VMI. My line is VMI 1.5. Meanwhile, it is VMI 1.5. Totals 157.5. I'm going to take the over at minus 114. 7:30, New Orleans, Northwestern State. My line is New Orleans 1. And it's New Orleans 1.5. Totals 152.5. I'm going to jump on the over. 8 o'clock, Wake and NC State on the ACC Network. My line is NC State by 10. And then it's NC State 7.5. Totals 144.5. I'm going to lay the NC State with 7.5 at minus 110. McNeese and Nichols. My line is Nichols by a whopping 17.5, and it's 14.5. I'm going to lay the 14.5 with Nichols at minus 104. Houston Baptist Incarnate Word. My line is Incarnate Word by 4.5. I don't think I've ever projected Incarnate Word as a favorite ever. And they're favored by 3.5, so I'm going to go to the total 146.5. I'm going to take the under at minus 112. Next up is Sam Houston State and A&M Corpus Christi. My line is Sam Houston State by 16, and it's 7.5. I'm going to lay the 7.5 at Sam Houston State at minus 114. 8:30, Stephen F. Austin and Abilene Christian. My line is Stephen F. Austin at minus 2.5. And it's Abilene Christian by 3.5. I'm taking Stephen F. Austin plus 3.5 and plus 136 on the money line. SEC Network, Ole Miss, Arkansas. My line is Arkansas by 1.5. Meanwhile, it's Arkansas by 5.5. I'm going to take Ole Miss plus 5.5 at minus 114. 9 o'clock, ESPN 2, Kansas State at number 2, Baylor. My line is Baylor by a whopping 22.5, and it is 23.5. So I have to go to the total 135.5, and I'm going to take the over at minus 112. Big Ten Network, number 14, Wisconsin at Maryland. My line is Wisconsin 19. And it is only 2.5. I'm going to lay it at 2.5 at Wisconsin at minus 115. Next up is Louisville Clemson on the ACC Network X channel. Number 25, Louisville, I should say. My line is Louisville 10. Clemson's fair by 1.5. Bullshit line. Give me Louisville plus the 1.5. They're going to win outright. And you know what it's telling you. I know the theory, but Louisville's just better than Clemson. This reminds me of that Virginia game a little bit. When Virginia, I believe, closes a dog at Clemson. I thought it was ridiculous. I'm taking Louisville plus 1.5 and plus 106 straight up. Drake, Missouri State. My projection's Drake 5.5. And it's 3.5. I'm going to lay the 3.5 at Drake at a juiced minus 120. Fox Sports 1, St. John's DePaul. My line, St. John's 4.5. And it's DePaul by 1.5. I'm taking St. John's plus the 1.5. I'm ridiculously juiced minus 124. And minus 108 straight up. ESPNU, Washington State, and Colorado. My line is Colorado 10. And it's 14.5. I have to take Wazoo plus the 14.5. CBS Sports Network, Boise State, Colorado State. My line is Boise 4. And it's Boise 2.5. Total's 147.5. I'm jumping on the over at minus 114. Central Arkansas and Southeast Louisiana. My line is Central Arkansas by 11. And it is Central Arkansas by 1.5. I'm going to lay the 1.5 for Central Arkansas at minus 105. And Utah State, UNLV, 11 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. My line is Utah State 9.5. And then it's 6.5. I'm going to lay the 6.5 at Utah State in a bounce back spot at minus 104. Alrighty. Now we'll go to the NBA. We'll recap yesterday's short window and look ahead to a very busy slate for tonight in the association. Hawks over the Clippers, 108-99. Clippers are without Paul George, Kawhi, and Pat Beverly. Atlanta's 9-8. Clippers 13-5. Trae Young, 38 points and 5 assists. Reggie Jackson had 20 with 8 assists for the Clippers. Rockets over the Wizards, 107-88. The Rockets are 7-9. Washington's 3-10. John Wall, 24 points and 5 assists to lead the Rockets against his former team. And Bradley Beal had 33 for Washington. Jazz over the Knicks, 108-94 for their 9th win in a row. Utah's 13-4. Knicks are 8-11. Royce O'Neal led them in scoring with 20. Austin Rivers had a ridiculous 25 points in the second quarter for New York, and that was the reason why they were in that game and had the lead. Looking ahead to tonight in the NBA, 7 o'clock, you have the Pacers and the Hornets. My line for this game is Indy by 3.5, total 221. Meanwhile, FanDuel has it Charlotte 1.5, total 218.5. I'm going to take the Pacers plus the 1.5 and plus 102 straight up. I think that Malcolm Brogdon could be the best player on the court like he has been in a lot of games this year. So give me Indiana plus the 1.5 and plus 102 on the money line. Pistons Cavaliers. My line's Cleveland 5, total 218. Meanwhile, it's Cleveland 2.5, total 213.5. I'm going to take over 213.5 because the Cavs defense, I think, has regressed to the mean a little bit. And I think that the Pistons can actually put up a number against them, for them. Kings Magic. My line is Magic 0.5, total 224.5. Meanwhile, it's Magic 1.5, total 222. I have no choice but to take the over 222. 7:30 Nets Hawks. My line is Brooklyn 9, total 228.5. Meanwhile, it's Brooklyn 7, total 236. No choice but to take the under. They are overinflating these Brooklyn totals. And I think that it proved itself in that Miami game the other night when it was only like 96-88 or something like that. Nuggets Heat. My line is Nuggets 10, total 224.5. Meanwhile, it's Nuggets 5.5, total 220.5. As of right now, I have projected Jimmy Butler out. And according to Twitter, Jimmy Butler is supposed to be, let's see here. So, not tonight, but the next game. And Tyler Herro, I projected out as well. So, I'm going to lay the points with Denver against Miami. 7:30 ESPN, Lakers 76ers. My line is Lakers 7 total, 221.5. And that is projected with Joel Embiid out. And Joel Embiid is playing, so I have to make a move to Lakers 3 total of 221.5. Meanwhile, it is Lakers 3 total, 221.5. Really? Oh. All right. Lakers money line's the pick for this at minus 148. I have no choice. All right, well, let's move on. Should be a great game to go on ESPN. Should be Mike Breen and Jeff Van Gundy on the call. One of the best matchups you'll see all year. NBA Finals preview, perhaps. Bucks Raptors. My line is Milwaukee 10.5 total, 225.5. Meanwhile, Milwaukee 6 total, 224.5. I'm going to lay the 6 with Milwaukee against the Raptors. 8:30 Celtics Spurs. My line is Celtics 5 total, 222.5. Meanwhile, Celtics 4 total, 224. I have no choice but to take the under 224 in this game, and I like it because Kemba Walker's not supposed to be playing. 9 o'clock, Wizards Pelicans. My line is Pelicans by 2 total, 230. Meanwhile, it is Pelicans 7.5 total, 227. I'm going to take the Wizards plus 7.5. That's a big number. I think Bradley Beal is going to keep them in that game. Spurs Suns, or Thunder Suns, my bad. My line is Suns 7 total, 220. Meanwhile, Suns 6 total, 220.5. I have no choice but to lay the 6 with the Suns, even though it's a point differential. Mavericks Jazz. My line's Jazz 6.5 total, 219.5. Meanwhile, it's Jazz 3.5 total, 225. I have no choice but to take the under. The Jazz have played excellent defense on this winning streak. So I'm going to take the under 225. And the Mavericks offense just hasn't been right all season. And 10 o'clock ESPN, Timberwolves Warriors. Don't like that this game's on ESPN because the Timberwolves are bad. If anything, 7 o'clock should be the Laker game. And at 9:30, they should have put in Dallas, Utah, as Utah goes for 10 straight. Or Thunder Suns, because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has kept the Thunder competitive in a lot of these games. So yeah, Dallas, Utah should be the ESPN game. And the nightcap game. They should have put that game at 10 o'clock, if anything. Yeah, they should have moved Dallas, Utah to 10. That's my take. But anyway, my projection is Warriors 12 totals to 25.5. It looks like Karl Anthony Towns is still out. And it's Golden State 8 total 228. I'm going to lay to 8 with Golden State. No Karl Anthony Towns. The Timberwolves have been terrible. So give me Golden State minus 8 against Minnesota as the last NBA pick on the board tonight. NHL time. We'll go over a busy slate from yesterday and look ahead to tonight's window. Sabres over the Rangers 3-2. Buffalo goes to 3-3-1. Rangers 1-4-1. Number 3 started game with the goal, which was the go-ahead goal in the game, Tobias Ryder. The number 2 started game with a goal, Dylan Cousins, and the number 1 started game with an assist, Rasmus Ristolainen, who had a fantastic game. Bruins over the Penguins 3-2 in overtime on the game winner by Craig Smith, my bad. As Boston goes to 4-1-1, big win for Boston. Pittsburgh drops to 4-2-1. Give the Penguins credit because they rallied back in the third period to tie it, although they only got 1 point out of it. Number 3 started the game with 28 saves on 30 shots. Tuukka Rask looked like the Tuukka Rask of old for the first 2 periods of the game and in overtime. Number 2 started the game with the goal and assist, Brad Marchand. Number 1 started the game with the overtime winner, Craig Smith. Flyers over the Devils 5-3. The Flyers are 4-2-1. New Jersey 3-2-1. The number 3 started the game with 2 assists, Claude Giroux. The number 2 started the game with a goal and 2 assists, Ivan Provorov. And the number 1 started the game with 2 goals, James Van Riemsdyk. Capitals over the Islanders 3-2. Capitals go to 4-0-3. Islanders 3-3-0. The number 3 started the game with a goal and assist, John Carlson. The number 2 started the game with 32 saves on 34 shots, Vitek Vanecek. And the number 1 started the game with a goal and an assist, Justin Schultz, who scored the go-ahead goal with 27 seconds left in regulation. Panthers over the Blue Jackets 4-3 in a shootout. The Panthers 3-0-0. Columbus 2-2-3. The number 3 started the game with the goal, Cam Atkinson. Number 2 started the game with the goal, Alexander Barkov. And the number 1 started the game with the goal, Patrick Hornquist, as he scored the shootout game winner as well. Predators over the Blackhawks 3-2 in overtime on the game-winning goal by Roman Josi. Nashville goes to 3-3-0. Chicago 2-3-2. Number 3 started the game with the goal, Yakov Trenin. The number 2 started the game, a goal and assist, Mikael Granlund. And the number 1 started the game with the overtime winner, Roman Josi. Jets over the Oilers 6-4. Jets 5-2-0. Edmonton 3-5-0. Number 3 started the game with a goal and 2 assists, Adam Lowry. Number 2 started the game with 2 goals, Andrew Kopp, as well as his 2 assists. And the number 1 started the game with a goal and 3 assists, Nikolaj Ehlers. Kings over the Wild 2-1. The Kings 3-2-2. The Wild 4-3-0. The number 1 started the game with 32 saves on 33 shots, Calvin Peterson. The number 2 started the game with the goal, Joel Eriksson Ek. And the number 3 started the game with the goal, Carl Gunstrom. Stars over the Red Wings 2-1 in overtime on a game-winning goal by Jason Dickinson, as Dallas goes to 3-0-0. Detroit goes to 2-4-1. Number 3 started the game with the goal, Vladislav Nemestikov. The number 2 started the game with the goal and assist, John Klingberg. And the number 1 started the game with the goal, Jason Dickinson. Maple Leafs over the Flames 4-3. The Maple Leafs are 6-2-0. Calgary 2-2-1. The number 3 started the game, didn't have a point, but had a good game, Elias Lindholm. Number 2 started the game with a goal and assist, Mitch Marner. Number 1 started the game with 2 goals, Johnny Gaudreau. Avalanche over the Sharks 7-3. The Avs 4-3-0. San Jose 3-4-0. This was just an avalanche put on by Colorado, no pun intended. Brendan Saad had a goal. Devin Taves had a goal. Samuel Girard had a goal. Mikko Rantanen, 6 goals on the year. Nathan McKinnon has 7 assists on the season. Cale Makar had 3 assists in the game. Ryan Donato scored for San Jose. Actually scored the first goal of the game. Ducks over the Coyotes, 1-0. Ducks 3-2-2. Arizona 2-4-1. Number 3 started the game with the lone goal of the game, Danton Heinen. The number 2 started the game with 23 saves on 24 shots, Darcy Kemper. And the number 1 started the game with 31 saves on 31 shots, John Gibson. Blues over the Golden Knights 5-4 in a shootout. Blues 4-2-1. Vegas 5-1-1. Number 3 started the game with 42 saves on 46 shots, Jordan Binghamton. The number 2 started the game with an assist, Braden Shen, and had the shootout winner as well. And the number 1 started the game with a hat trick, Max Pacioretty. Looking ahead to tonight's games, only 2 on the board. On NBCSN tonight, you have the second of a back-to-back between the Blackhawks and the Predators. John Forslund and Eddie Olczyk on the call. Preds are minus 180. Blackhawks plus 152. Over under 6.5. Unders minus 125. Overs plus 105. Preds puck line minus 1.5 is plus 142. Blackhawks puck line plus 1.5 is minus 168. I am going to go with the over 6.5. I think that there's going to be more scoring in this game. So give me over 6.5 at plus 105. I just like the value on the over. And then you have the Senators and the Canucks at 8 o'clock. The Canucks are minus 152. The Senators are plus 128. Over under 6.5. Over is minus 120. Under is even money. Canucks minus 1.5 is plus 176. Senators plus 1.5 is minus 210. I'm going to take another over here at minus 120. I just think this is a high-scoring game. So give me the over minus 120 over 6.5. Alrighty, now I'm going to do my NBA power rankings. A lot of changes from last week to this week. So, without further ado, here we go. All right, number 30, the Detroit Pistons. They're the worst team in the league, as I thought they would be. Number 29 is the Washington Wizards. Very disappointing season so far for them. Bradley Beal's probably the next big name traded. 28, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Karl-Anthony Towns has COVID. Hopefully he gets better soon. 27, Sacramento Kings. They've been a little up and down. Tyrese Halliburton's been a surprise rookie, or to some, but he's certainly been better than I even would have thought as a rookie. 26, the New Orleans Pelicans. They've been disappointing so far. Zion's been putting up numbers, but the rest of the team's been disappointing, other than Brandon Ingram. 25, the Charlotte Hornets. Very up and down, erratic. There's so many of those Eastern Conference teams that are just erratic. They're one of them. The next couple on this list are as well. Number 24, the Chicago Bulls. Billy Donovan's got a lot out of them offensively, but their defense still stinks. 23, the New York Knicks. Tom Thibodeau really has got a lot out of this team. Really, Julius Randle's reminded me a lot of Joakim Noah from when Noah was in his prime with the Bulls and Noah was putting up triple-doubles with his passing. That's what Randle has reminded me of this year, except that Randle has range and Noah never had three-point range. And R.J. Barrett is one of the more improved second-year players in the league, in my opinion. 22, the Toronto Raptors. They've been pretty erratic to start the year as well. It's unfortunate they're playing in Tampa. 21, the Orlando Magic. It sucks that Markelle Fultz is out for the year. That's probably going to come back to bite them at some point. 20, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Very up and down. They had those impressive wins over the Nets recently. Number 19, the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder have been a pleasant surprise led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. 18, the Houston Rockets, 7-9 on the year, and they're winning games without James Harden. Victor Oladipo's play. Number 17, the Miami Heat. Very disappointing, 6-10, but Jimmy Butler had COVID that set them back. I think that they can rally from this because they have a great coach and they have a great infrastructure in there that I just believe in. And I think they'll make a trade as well. 16, the San Antonio Spurs. They've been a pleasant surprise so far this year. LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan have really turned back the clock a little bit. Number 15, the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks have been a little erratic, but I just like them more than the rest of those Eastern Conference teams because of Trae Young and the improvement of DeAndre Hunter and John Collins, and Clint Capella's had an impact with them as well. 14, the Dallas Mavericks. They've been disappointing, but I think they'll eventually get it going. Number 13, the Memphis Grizzlies. They're back. Eventually will be back from their COVID hiatus. John Morant has been marvelous. Number 12, the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors are still pretty good. Stephen Curry's carried them in a lot of these games. Number 11, the Phoenix Suns. The Suns have been pretty fun to watch, led by Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Number 10, the Portland Trailblazers. Damian Lillard's just single-handedly winning them these games left and right, even without C.J. McCollum and Jusuf Nurkic. Number 9, the Indiana Pacers. They've been doing very well without T.J. Warren, and once Karis LeVert comes back and Warren comes back, they'll be very formidable in the East. Malcolm Brogdon's been marvelous. Number 8, the Milwaukee Bucks. They've been a little off to start the year. I think disappointing is a strong word, but I'm going to say for them off. Giannis's free throw shooting's been very poor. Number 7, the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum's back for them. Kemba Walker will eventually be back. Number 6, the Brooklyn Nets. James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. That's just an unstoppable offensive trio. Disappointing that they lost to Cleveland, and their offense really wasn't much against Miami. Number 5, the Denver Nuggets. They've quietly have turned it on lately after a subpar start. to the season. Number 4, the Philadelphia 76ers. They've been really good to start the year, and they have a big game tonight at home against the Lakers on ESPN. Number 3, the Los Angeles Clippers. They've been pretty good, although Kawhi and Paul George missed the last game. Number 2, the Utah Jazz, winners of 9 straight games. They're rolling, and if it wasn't for LeBron and the Lakers, they have the top spot right now in the power rankings. And speaking of the Lakers, they're obviously number 1. LeBron's the MVP favorite right now. My preseason pick of LeBron, he was 15-1 before the year. He's the favorite now. It's unbelievable. And Anthony Davis is obviously playing well as well. And their additions have made impacts this year as well so far as well. So there you have it, the NBA power rankings so far. And now I'm going to talk about the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Nobody got in, which doesn't surprise me. I actually thought that there was a distinct possibility. But if I had a ballot this year, I would have voted 5 players in. But obviously I don't have a ballot. I would have put in Bobby Abreu, Roger Clemens, Andrew Jones, Manny Ramirez, and Gary Sheffield. That would have been my 5 to vote in. The first year on the ballot, guys, was Mark Burley, A.J. Burnett, Michael Kadire, Dan Harron, LaTroy Hawkins, Tim Hudson, Torrey Hunter, Aramis Ramirez, Nick Swisher, Shane Victorino, and Barry Zito. And then next year, it's going to be crazy. A-Rod's going to be on the ballot next year. David Ortiz, Mark Teixeira. So you're going to have some big names on the ballot next year. And when we're talking next year, I think that it could be very dramatic in terms of who can get voted in. Because obviously the 2 guys I mentioned at the top, A-Rod and David Ortiz. Obviously A-Rod did PEDs. David Ortiz was linked and was in that era. And he was on the biogenesis list back in 2003, I want to say it was, but it was never popped up again. So I'm fascinated to see come next year if A-Rod and David Ortiz get in. I don't think Mark Teixeira will get in personally, but I'm sure he'll be on the ballot. And there's some other guys that retired in 2016 that will be on the ballot as well. So it's going to be interesting to see who gets in. And then obviously for next year, there's going to be some guys that are going to be on the ballot for 1 more year. Curt Schilling's removing himself from the ballot. He put on his Facebook page yesterday. I just think that he knows realistically that he's not getting in. He got 71.1% of the vote. He got the closest, but I don't think that he will get in because he was in that era and he's a big social media chatter, and I think that some of the voters don't like that out of Schilling. And Roger Clemens has 1 more year left on the ballot as well, so it's going to be interesting to see if he gets in or not. I would have voted for him personally because he was just a great pitcher. He was better than Curt Schilling, if you ask me. He had a better prime. So I would have voted in Roger. So, yeah, no Hall of Fame people this year, and obviously next year I think is very, very fascinating. And then this summer, Derek Jeter and Larry Walker are getting voted in because they were supposed to be voted in last year, but then the coronavirus happened. So they're going to vote those 2 guys in 2021. So this year, those 2 will get voted in, and it's a big deal, obviously, because Derek Jeter, one of the best players of his generation, obviously. And he was in that steroid era and was always clean. So I'm sure the Yankee fans around the country will be very pleased when that day comes in August. And hopefully COVID doesn't have to cancel that either, which I don't think so because the vaccine's here and cases are going to be going down, I think. All right, free agent signings in Major League Baseball happened yesterday. The big one, JT Realmuto, Phillies, 5 years, $115.5 million. Phillies had to get it done, bottom line. They gave up a lot to get him a couple years ago in that trade, including Sixto Sanchez, who He's going to be the ace of the Marlins staff for years to come down there. So, something that Philadelphia had to get done. So, you got him, Bryce Harper, AJ Burnett, Aaron Nola. I had AJ Burnett in my head because I was just looking at the Hall of Fame ballot. Obviously, Zach Wheeler, who is rumored to be in trades, amazingly enough, but no, he sticks around. Jake Arrieta's still there. They have some interesting guys on that roster, but they're just in a tough division with the Mets, the Nationals, the Braves, and the Marlins even, who were a pleasant surprise playoff team from a year ago and made the second round last year, but there's going to be no expanded playoffs this year, so I don't think it's realistic for Miami to get back there personally, but yeah, JT Realmuto back to the Phillies, 5 years, $115.5 million, big contract, highest paid catcher in Major League Baseball history. He's a really solid all-around catcher. There were rumors that the Braves were interested, but I don't think they want to pay top notch. Or maybe the Braves were being used as leverage for Philadelphia to pay up. And Dave Dombrowski, who's now in that front office. So you knew Philadelphia wasn't going away this offseason, and they make a splashy move by re-signing JT Realmuto. And Andrelton Simmons to the Minnesota Twins on a 1-year deal, I think $10.5 million. Surprising signing, to say the least. I'm not a huge Andrelton Simmons fan. I always thought that he was a defense-only player. So, Andrelton Simmons will be the shortstop. Jorge Polanco goes to second, and Luis Arraez will be the super utility. And now you have a stronger defense with Simmons and Byron Buxton. So they get better defensively. Simmons will probably bat in the bottom 3 in their order. He's not a good offensive player at this point in his career. He's a better defensive player than he is offensive player. And he bounced around a little bit. Like, he was on Atlanta, and then he was on the Angels, and now he lands himself a 1-year, $10.5 million contract with the Minnesota Twins. Then we had another shortstop signing yesterday. Marcus Semien, 1 year, I believe, $18 million with the Toronto Blue Jays. And that surprised a lot of people. Yeah, 1 year, $18 million. So this moves Semien to second base. He'll be playing second for them. Cavan Biggio goes to third. And then Vlad Guerrero Jr. will be DH/first base for them. This makes them better offensively. Semien had a career year, not last year, but in 2019. And then he regressed a little bit, predictably regressed last year. Now he's on a 1 year, $18 million prove-it deal with the Blue Jays. There's still some free agents left out there. Trevor Bauer, rumored that he could potentially go to the Mets, which would, I think, make the Mets the team to beat in the National League East, along with Atlanta. And then you have Marcell Ozuna still sitting out there as well. So there's some guys you have out there. So Michael Brantley re-signed with the Astros after it was rumored that he was going to go to the Blue Jays. So the Blue Jays improved themselves with Marcus Semien and George Springer. And now that team is a loaded offensive team with those guys and Bichette and Vlad and Biggio and Teoscar Hernandez, Danny Jansen. So that team all of a sudden is awesome offensively, but their pitching still needs help. If the Blue Jays sign Trevor Bauer, that puts them in the conversation for a wild card in the American League and maybe even a division crown, depending on how you feel about the Yankees and Tampa Bay. So yeah, Semien to the Blue Jays 1 year deal, and now D.G. Gregorius is still a shortstop. That's a free agent. Maybe he goes to the Reds or the Tigers, or maybe back to Philadelphia. And now would make them a little bit better. I think he does end up back with the Phils, too. So the Phillies would just bring back the same team as they had last year with a couple bullpen improvements. So that's what I think is ultimately going to happen with Didi Gregorius. DJ LeMahieu obviously resigned with the Yankees. We talked about that on the podcast when it happened. NFL coaching news, a couple of offensive coordinator hirings. Shane Waldron, the former Rams passing game coordinator, will go to Seattle, become their offensive coordinator. So Jared Goff's old coach is now going to be running the offense in Seattle with Russell Wilson. So that's an interesting hire. Obviously, Jared Goff really hasn't been all that special since the year he got that contract. And there's rumors about his future now. So, to me, this isn't that great of a hire for Seattle. I would have looked into the Bills quarterback coach, potentially, or KC's quarterback coach. But yeah, I don't like this hire for Seattle at all, personally. And then the Steelers promoted Matt Canada to be their offensive coordinator. That hire surprised me a little bit. I thought that potentially that they were going to hire like a Hugh Jackson or Pep Hamilton, but no, they go with Matt Canada, who was Ben Roethlisberger's quarterback coach. He's done a good job with Roethlisberger, and got a lot out of Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. Well, more than I would have expected out of those guys. The year Roethlisberger was hurt, which was last season. So Matt Canada goes from quarterback's coach to offensive coordinator. I think that this could work. They have a talented offense, but the second half of the year, that unit really fell apart. And the receivers have really been dropping a lot of passes and stuff. And ultimately that led to the demise of their former offensive coordinator. Now Matt Canada gets promoted, and we'll see how that goes. And then the elephant in the room is still the Texans the Texans head coach. They interviewed Leslie Frazier, who's the Bills' defensive coordinator. Leslie Frazier obviously was the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. He was their coach of the year that Adrian Peterson won the MVP. I think he didn't win coach of the year, but he was certainly in play for it because that was the year of Chuck Strong, as Bruce Arians won the coach of the year for the Colts. And then Mike Shanahan obviously was a candidate that year. He got the Redskins to the postseason, or they were the Redskins then. And then Pete Carroll, that was his coming out party with the Seahawks. Although you could argue that that year was the year that they knocked off the Saints in the wildcard game. The year they went 7-9. But yeah, Leslie Frazier in the mix for Buffalo. Eric Bieniemy, which would be a solid hire. But like we talked about on the podcast, regardless of who they hire, Deshaun Watson is saying see ya. He does not want back with Houston. It got too sour there. And somebody's going to have to pay up to get Deshaun, whether it's San Francisco, Chicago, the Jets, the Dolphins, Indy. Could be anybody. And New Orleans, I think, is in play if Breeze retires. I don't think it'll be Indy because I don't think that Houston wants to trade in division, and I don't think it'll be Jacksonville for the same reason. But that's the team that Houston should convince to pull the trigger, because then they get Trevor Lawrence. So, if anything, Jacksonville should be the team that Houston's calling, but Jacksonville won't do it because they know that they'd rather have Trevor Lawrence the next 10 years than Deshaun Watson. So, and even the next 5 years perhaps as well. So, I would rule them out immediately. Maybe the Jets. Maybe the Patriots. We'll see. So, yeah. The Deshaun Watson thing's a big deal. And then Matt Stafford's available. Him and the Lions are parting ways. That news broke over the weekend. And obviously those same teams that are in play for Watson are going to be in play for Stafford. And except for Stafford's case, I don't see him going to the Bears because I don't see them trading in division. If anything, Stafford will end up like on Indy or something like that. Because I think Indy wants to have a veteran in there rather than a rookie. Or maybe the Patriots go after him. So it's going to be interesting to see who lands these quarterbacks. And now we will preview tonight's episode of The Masked Dancer very quickly. It is the Super 6. Exotic Bird, Hammerhead, Tulip, Zebra, Cotton Candy, and Sloth. Quickly talk about everybody. Sloth is somebody that last time we saw Sloth had a baseball bat, and there's a soccer ball in there as well. Hints about a star like himself, like star like me. A bad boy, someone that was afraid to show off. And his word up was leading man. I thought it was Kevin McHale. Cotton Candy, very talented. Iced out, maybe an Olympic hint. There's a book with a rainbow, a peace sign, eagle flag. Carefree and simple, clue, but that wasn't her life. Word up was team player, and my guess was Simone Biles. Zebra, there's a computer in office, ZEO instead of CEO. UFC was a fire, clue. His word up was champion. I think it's Floyd Mayweather. And then the last time we saw Tulip had an awesome performance to field a goal by Eva Cassidy. There is a competing clue, someone that hints about being jealous of a friend. There's a bell in there, maybe that hints to Philadelphia. Her word up was princess. My guess is Maddie Ziegler of Dance Moms. Hammerhead, one shot, one opportunity. There's a wedding cake, a one jersey. Navigating shores in life. To me, this leads up to Mike Sorrentino of the Jersey Shore. And word up was heartbreaker. He broke a lot of people's hearts on the Jersey Shore. There's too many Jersey Shore clues. This is definitely Mike Sorrentino. And then the Exotic Bird talks about having a big opportunity. There's a DJ in there, a football trophy. That could be into a Super Bowl halftime appearance. Her word up was number one. Maybe she had a number one hit single. And for me, this is Shakira. And in my pick to get voted off tonight, I'm going to say Hammerhead goes home, and it is indeed Mike the Situation Sorrentino of the Jersey Shore. Last but not least, best bet of the day, brought to you by FanDuel. Best bet was a flat-out loser last night, as I took the over in that game between the Butler and UConn. This was a tougher slate to pick from for best bet. But my pick for tonight, don't feel good about it, but I'm taking Virginia Tech plus 1.5 at minus 104 against Notre Dame. So there you have it. Virginia Tech plus 1.5 against Notre Dame at plus money. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping everything in the world of sports and looking ahead to tomorrow. We'll do NHL Power Rankings tomorrow. We'll recap Masked Dancer as well, and any other news that happens in the world of sports and pop culture I'll have for you as well. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.